Hello and welcome back to Off Track Podcast with me, Dave Neal, for this final episode of 2025. It's an absolute pleasure to be back at the Moulsdale Foundation up in Glasgow with two more Scottish legends in the shape of Stuart Easton and John Crawford. With 4 British Supersport titles between them and 4 Macau GP wins, there's a raft of stories to be told on the Off Track Podcast before we wrap up everything for Christmas and the new year. A massive thanks to the Moulsdale Foundation for making this episode happen. And that's enough from me. Let's get on with it. Ladies and gentlemen, the very special Stuart Easton and John Crawford. Enjoy. Well, welcome back to the Moulsdale Foundation for another open day here up at Bishop Briggs in Glasgow. And I'm absolutely delighted to say joining us this time round, Stuart Easton, John Crawford. Gentlemen, welcome to the Moulsdale Foundation. Great to see you both.
Thank you. Thanks for having us.
It's going to be a great day. We've got the live show upstairs coming up later this afternoon. But the first thing we're going to do is have a bit of a chat with both of you. Go back over the career, get some stories underway. We've already had a bit of a practice at that while we've been sat waiting. So we've got one or two in the lockers ready. But we'll come to you first, John. Tell me the story how you got started in racing.
Bizarre. I didn't know anybody from a racing background. I had obviously never raced. I went to Knockhill with some of my friends in 1988 to watch the British Superbikes, and there was a lot of Scottish guys doing it then. And I nipped up to the Loo while one of the races were on. I came out of the Loo and there was a GSXR 750 for sale, and I thought, I'm going to have a go at motorbike racing. So I done a deal with this guy. He was from St Andrews. I arranged to go up on the Wednesday night to get the bike. I walked down to the hairpin and said to my friends, I'm going racing. And they looked at me as if I was mental. Told them the story, which they didn't believe, to take them back up to the pits, show them the bike, speak to the guy, and that was me. I was a bike racer.
And one of your first experiences at Knockhill involving one of our guests later on this afternoon with Simo?
Yeah. So that was the tail end of 88, because obviously the British Superbike's quite late to Knockhill. So it started the following year. So just to be really stupid, I bought a GSXR 1100 for my first full season. So anyway, there I am, out on track, total novice, comes round the corner, coming up the straight in Knockhill, and I sees this Durex Suzuki, Ian Simpson. Ian's running the bike in, to be fair. And I come up the hill and I can see him, and I hesitated, and I thought, am I allowed to pass him? You know, I was like totally green to the whole thing. I thought that for a split second, to be fair, and then I just zoomed past, and that was me. That was the start of it all. And
let Simo have it, in your own mind anyway.
Yeah.
At that point.
Yeah, let's say I just striped them.
I'll remind him of that later.
We'll not mention the running in bit for him. Yeah.
Stuart, what about you? Your start in racing is a little bit different.
It was. I came from motocross. That was the schoolboy motocross was my kind of start on motorbikes, and I came into probably the era where it was less independent. It was more, teams were more of a thing by that time. Probably when you started, it was more.
We're all doing it all
a lot more independent. But at motocross, I met a guy called Paul Bird, and who was starting a 250 team at the time in 1996, and we sort of kept in touch, and he kept asking if I fancied to go on a road bike, and coming from Hoyk, and Steve Hislop was the local hero, and so I knew what road racing was. So I took him up on the offer of getting a little go on a super teen bike at Three Sisters circuit in Wigan. So that's where it started really, and coming from motocross, took to it quite well, and off I went, and me and my dad used the motocross van to do the super teen championship in 1998.
So moving on from those times, JC, going into 98, that was coming into your strongest years in Supersport.
Yeah.
With a championship in 98 and 99.
Yes.
So you kind of followed each other nicely through the championships, haven't you? But you've been slightly younger than JC.
A chunk younger, let's be fair. So, yeah.
So different.
I've got the wrinkles to prove it.
Next generation. His paper round was on the flat, even though he's Scottish. That paper round was definitely on the flat. But coming into your strongest times for 98 and 99, the field that you had to race against your Steve Platers, your Mara Browns, your Jim Moody's.
Yep. Ian
Simpson as well.
Like all the guys, Phil Borley, who'd been European champion.
All these Scotsmen coming down to the British Superbike Championship and taking all our trophies and bringing them back across the border.
Well, what can I say? If you've got some cash, you can have some of them back. No, it was definitely a very competitive time, you know, and a lot of the guys were racing elsewhere in the world even and doing well, you know, and like Jim and Simo and, as I said, Borley and Hurd Selby and guys like that, were all racing in the then European 600 Championship and stuff in the early and mid-90s and winning trophies, and you could go over there and actually win money, and you could earn a living by picking up the paper, saying, oh, I'll do that meeting and go and do it, you know, whereas now you've got to be registered for the championship, you've got to use their tyres, you've got to do this, you've got to do that. You couldn't, but I mean, all the guys that I kind of grew up with, if you like, you could go to Ireland and race, you could go here and there, and you could generate an income to help pay for your British Championship thing. But back to the thing, that your point was, all these guys were obviously well honed over the years and all in the British Supersport Championship, you know. So yeah, you had to be on your game, but you know, racing against these level of guys just ups your game, you know, so it just becomes the norm. The difference being is you can then go to other races and you'll be right at the front because you could compete with the guys. So.
But also, it does help you raise your game without a shadow of a doubt, but also starting later as well.
Yeah, I mean, I never started racing until I was 22, you know, and it's bizarre. And by the time I got to Crescent, if you like, in 97, you know, I was like almost in my 30s, you know what I mean? It's like, you know, Casey Stoner retires at 27, you know, a couple of World Championships.
You're just getting going.
Yeah, I'm just getting going, you know, just getting the overalls off for work and go, like, let's give a shot at your motorbike, mister.
How fast does that go?
Yeah.
How did the Crescent ride come about? Because that's for the next 4 years, so 98, 99, 2000.
Well, I actually went there in 97.
Was it 97?
97 I went to Crescent, yeah. So, and obviously, we were on Avon tyres, to be fair, and for as much as Avon tried to do a good job, the tyres were naff. I was struggling to get into the top 10, and then Paul Denning said to me, we went to Knockhill, and he said, do you want to try Dunlops? I said, if you let me race Dunlops, I'm not trying them. He said, they're brilliant, and then go back to Avons. So he said, right, on you go. So I stuck some Dunlops on the bike. I'd went from being struggling to get in the top 10 to get out and being the first person to ever do a 53 round Knockhill on a Supersport bike. Qualified pole with James Toseland second, and that was it. Never looked back. So.
And that's what set it up for the next 2 years after that.
Started it, yeah, in the end of 97, to digress slightly.
Go for it.
We'd done the last race of the year, 97. Honda had won every race up until then. It was Donington, last race of the year, last lap, I'm leading. Come under Starkey's Bridge, it was a short circuit. Waved yellows into the last corner. I thought, that's it, job done, race won. Went to tip in and James Toseland passed me into the chicane.
On the waved yellows?
And I just laughed. I thought, young boy, mad for it. You know, I've won anyway. So, but cut a long story short, Honda basically said to the championship, if we don't win that race, we'll not be representing next year because we've won every other race. And Roger Burnett, who was then commentating, who went on to become James Toseland's manager.
He did, yeah.
Actually, he was even going mental about it, you know what I mean? There was an uproar about it, but Honda had so much power in the championship at the time, so they gave them the win. Which meant I had actually my deal done with Suzuki before I left Donington that night. They were enraged. So that was me, that the deal was done for 98 before I left the pits at the last race in 97.
How did that fire you up for the following season?
Yeah, to be fair, in my mind I had won it anyway, you know, so, but I mean, like, yeah, it was still a slap in the face, wasn't it? And it just showed you what you're up against, so. And I had no malice towards James about it. I mean, like, he just thought, I'm passing him, and did, you know.
The impetuousness of youth.
Yeah, lucky him.
Yeah, absolutely. From your point of view, Stuart, when you progressing through the super teams, having John McGuinness as a teammate, having the aforementioned James Toseland as a teammate as well back in 2000 for that, having that schooling with John, with JT under Birdie's control and still with his support as well as a mentor, it's an incredible introduction into the sport. It's like, here you go.
It was for sure. I mean, I think at the time, you know, we never really. It was before John and James were the superstars that they went on to be. To be fair, 2000, and it was me on a 125. John was on a 250, and James was on the the Honda Superbike, which was a bit of a underperforming bike, I think, at that time.
Turkey is the word. I think I like.
He actually broke his leg on it in a test day at Cardwell.
Yeah.
It's cut his season short, and I think John broke his leg as well. It was only me that was left with 2 American guys that year.
2 legs.
And 2 legs.
I was about to say the same thing. Yeah.
Still young, Dave.
I got mine later on.
We'll come to that. We'll come to that. When you took the step into the Supersport class, because it all kind of happened pretty quickly.
It did.
Over the course of a handful of seasons, and all of a sudden, the birdie goes, "Here's a Supersport bike. Let's see what we can do."
He kept moving me up every year quite
Yeah.
quickly. I came in on that 125, and I progressed through the year, and I won the final race at Donington to get 3rd in the championship. And I was really wanting to stay on a 125 to try and win the championship. And Paul bumped me up to the 250s, which ended up being the last year of the 250s in the UK. So I think I finished 3rd again in that class, and then got moved up to Supersport. So it was just like move up every time. And Supersport, in fairness for the 02 year, it was a year that was a little bit weaker. Like what John was saying, in the 90s, it was stacked with madmen, Supersport madmen.
The axe murderers class.
Yeah.
Absolute
It
axe murderers class.
It just happened to be a year that was a little bit kind of, I don't know, diluted a wee bit.
But to be fair to Stuart, you only need one fast guy that you need to beat every weekend, and it's just as hard.
You can only
know
beat
what I
what's
mean?
put in front
Yeah,
of you. can't you?
exactly. You can only race the guys that line up against you, you know. So
There was good guys in it. There was Scott Smart, Michael Laverty, and Simon Andrews, Ben Wilson. They were all in it, but they were sort of privateers.
Yes.
And I had the Ducati from Paul Bird, so I had a good package that year and managed to win the championship.
Then a young lad from Sheffield turns up in the shape of Carl Harris
That's right, for the following year.
for the following year.
The following year, it was back to being like a strong championship again. More, you had official Suzuki's, official Honda, us with the Ducati again, and I finished 2nd to Harris that year, which probably meant more that year than winning the previous year. It was I felt like I was riding quite good by that point, and managed to win 3 races and finish 2nd to Carl, which was nothing to be sniffed at.
When you lifted that championship in 02 with Hizzy as your teammate on the Superbike, were you able to understand where you were in your career at that point? And actually, because sometimes you can get carried away with what's going on. I'll come to the same with you, JC. To actually, I'm a big believer in being in the moment, but the speed that you move through the classes.
I never really thought anything of it at the time. It was only till recent years, like 20 odd years later, I had a look back, and I probably done myself a wee bit of a disservice saying it was a weak year, because I actually wildcarded at Brands Hatch for the World Supersport round and finished 10th. So I got a top 10, and it was my 6th ever race on a 4-stroke.
Which is incredible.
So when I say it was a weak year, I still think I did pretty well to get a top 10 in a world round.
With Belgardi Yamahas and everything else that was in World Supersport at the time. Strong fields.
Maybe not knowing an awful lot was a good thing. Just sometimes that can happen in race a day.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't know what you don't know, do you?
Yeah,
Exactly.
sometimes you watch young guys and you think he
Ignorance
doesn't know that you can't do that anymore.
I think I was maybe
You know,
a wee bit like that at
Yeah,
times
yeah.
that
Yeah.
year. So
They see that with Pedro Acosta and Mark and some of the
Yeah.
younger riders. They don't know what they don't know.
I heard somebody saying that about Kevin Schwantz once years ago, that his strength was he doesn't know that bike can't win, and his weakness was he doesn't know that bike can't win. You know, so
100% that.
that's
So
double-edged sword.
in your first championship year, JC, against the guys that you raced against,
Yeah.
tell me about that title winning weekend and how you came forward from that, because that's what you go racing for. You go racing to win, and wins make championships.
Yeah, well, a brief outline of that year would be, obviously, we started the year off with the sour taste in our mouth with the Honda thing from the year before, if you like. So we went to Brands Hatch and the short circuit and won that race quite comfortable, if I'm honest. So that was us off to a good start. And I knew that the secret was going to be trying to finish at the front or on the rostrum as often as you could, you know, try and get some consistency. So we then went to Thruxton, and that was our second race, first DNF. I'd actually got run off the track because Carol Muggeridge had high-sided in front of me, sorry, Philip McCallum did, and then because of that, Muggeridge run me off the track. So I got back on the track and started to fight my way through the field because I was back to last, and then they stopped to rest. So we reformed on the grid, started again, away we went, and I literally just caught and passed Steve Plater for the lead and my bike blew up. So that was that. He got 25 points, I get none. So to the point that the then Honda manager, Dave Hancock, phoned me that night, actually, after the race that Sunday night, to say, unlucky, you should have won that race. Because I rode really well to come through the pack, to be fair. Because like all the guys we've mentioned, they're not easy guys to pass. So that was fine. So anyway, that happened. So then your races to and fro all the way, and then Cadwell with a bike problem again, an electric problem. So I'd basically had 2 DNFs. So we're going then to Brands Hatch, 2 rounds to go, Brands Hatch, and then Donington would be the last round. We're at Brands, and basically, if Steve Plater had won it and I'd finished somewhere, Steve had won the championship. So I thought, right, I'll show them how to get around Brands Hatch, as you do. So I was actually on pole, and then in the 9 seconds of the session, I high-sided going down Paddock Hill, and yeah, God, massive crash. You would never get to line up the day after that crash. I had concussion, all sorts. The barriers around me and everything, you know, so yeah, one of those ones. So that was fine. They didn't think I was going to race the next day, and I'll genuinely get lifted onto the bike. So out we went, and I thought, right, well, I need to try and win this. And somehow, I honestly don't know, I did win it. But then, back to a story we were discussing earlier, Steve decided to get into a battle with Howard Whitby. And Steve ended up going down.
For the ladies and gentlemen watching and listening.
Yeah. Howard Whitby, and if you happen to be listening, how are you doing? Yeah, I had
That's
a few.
not what you said earlier.
No, I had a few tough races with Howard Whitby, but he was a hard guy, but he's there doing his own thing, isn't he? So fair play to him. So yeah, it's so that meant I left the Brands Hatch with a 5-point lead going to Donington, but I was wiped out. So then there was a big test at Donington on the Thursday before the meeting, and then it turns out Honda are now bringing the World Supersport team, James Toseland and Kirk McCarthy, to Donington, because if Steve Plater won the race and I was second, I would win it in countback, but countback of second places, not even wins. So the plan was Steve had to win it and somebody to get in between them. So they brought Kirk and James to help. So there I'm at home on Thursday, still reeling from the crash at Brands Hatch, and they're all testing. So I arrived down on Friday for obviously the meeting to start for me, thinking they've all had a day's practice. So I just went out, went as fast as I could, qualified in pole, and I thought, right, okay, let's see what we can do. So away we went in the race, and me and Mr. Plater exchanged blows a few times, and all the time I'm watching a few pit boards, because like you're getting your own information, but you're watching to see what other people are doing. And I knew they were going to try and get somebody in between us. And I think James maybe went off or crashed at Crenna. So then I knew Kirk was there. So I was just trying to keep pushing Steve's pace to make sure that they couldn't get in amongst us. So we crossed the line. Steve won it, and I finished second. And he looked around, and honestly, you think he was a blow-up doll and somebody just shot him with a dart. He just, as he crossed the line and looked around, I mean, I was right behind him, and there, that was the championship gone. So unlucky for him, but yeah, good for me. But yeah, it was definitely turned into quite a tough ordeal. So a good story.
Did you get on with Steve as well?
Yeah, I got on really well.
Yeah, it's difficult not to.
Yeah,
Steve Plater.
it's fair, you know. I mean, we run each other off the track a few times, but it's always fair and love and war. So yeah.
Who was your biggest rival over the years?
Just different ones every year, but
I guess moving up, sorry, just to give you a chance to think about it, I guess moving up each year, you don't get a chance to form rivalries. When you do 3 or 4 years in Supersport, you can stay with the same people, and the needle comes along, but you moved up so quickly.
Yeah, without hogging the limelight here. It's like in 2000, there was a mass exodus out of Supersport to Superbike. You know, I stayed with Suzuki and went to Superbike. Steve went to Kawasaki. Mara moved up. Shaky, who had a few good races with Shaky, and he won some Supersport races as well in '99. He moved up, you know, so it was like a lot of the fast guys out at Supersport all went to Superbike in the year 2000, you know. So it was, you're still racing all the same guys, but now and okay, to be fair, I wasn't near the front enemy, but then you've all of a sudden you've got Steve Hislop and all these guys to try and contend with, which you build into, but you know, you've went to fighting all these Supersport guys who've came with you, and now you've got a new realm of guys to fight against.
Rolling your eyes, you're like, got to lift the job again. So it's making way for you, that was all it was.
That's what it was. Aye. Next generation.
The next generation. So were the sort of stronger rivals over the time?
My second Supersport title was the big battle with Alistair Seeley. He was, I would say, a really tough rival. He probably would have fitted in well with John and his mates in the 90s, because he could. I mean, he would defend, but over defend, or if he passed you, and you were on the racing line, you'd get past you in the brakes, and he's already half a bike in front, and he would move across, and put you near enough on the grass. It was pretty dirty, and I hated him the whole season. Absolutely hated him. But after that, when the season was over, I think it was at the bike show. We had a beer, chatted about it, and turned out he was just similar to me. Just Northern Irish, Scottish. But I've got a lot of respect for him now, but I wouldn't want to race him again.
I think that was the story of Alistair's career, wasn't it? With the battles that he had with yourself, with Jack Kennedy, with Ben Wilson.
He used to sort of race in that way. If you passed him, he'd be straight back underneath, and the pace would slow up a second a lap, and it'd be a huge group then, and it would just be a dogfight, and which is not what I used to like. I used to like running my lines and running my own race, and if it was one-on-one, it was fine, but he would drag it into a dogfight every time.
Tell me about the influence that Hizzy had earlier in your career, and
It just seems like I said, when I look back, and at the time I never really thought that much of it. And I mean, I had Steve Hislop posters on my bedroom in the late 90s, and then 3 or 4 years later we were teammates. It was weird. It was just a bit surreal, and he helped me a right lot. You know, like a lot of the Scottish guys did. There's one thing that they all had time for other Scottish racers. It seemed to Steve and Jim Moody would be two guys that gave us a lot of help in my career. But I just kind of learned just being with them, and you never even realised you were learning, but you were learning, you know, and just going track walks and looking through your times and your sectors and anywhere you felt like you maybe drag a bit of information through by asking what I was feeling, and so it helped a lot overall, you know. And then a couple of seasons of that, and it brought me on as a rider, as a racer.
Last time we were here at the Moulsdale Foundation, we had Simo and Jim sat where you both are now and upstairs, and it's fascinating to listen to Jim, because similar to yourselves, you keep yourselves under the radar now. You've got your own lives outside of racing. Yeah. But Jim, I think understatedly, did so much for the Scottish riders.
Jim helped a lot. Helped a lot of guys, you know, like even guys he raced. Jim helped me get to where I was, and then me and Jim became each other's main competitors. You know, like in the '99 season, whatever, it was basically me and him. Like Steve Plater was there, but I mean, like, it was Jim I was more or less fighting for the championship. You know, so in a way, he helped me get there. Then all of a sudden, you know, like, he's then trying to beat me. And I actually made a comparison with this. It's maybe slightly out of text, but I think Jonathan Ray, how he helped Top Rack. And then it was like a rod to beat himself, wasn't it? When Top Rack was then beating him. Jim helped me get to where I was, to then have to try and beat me. And luckily that season I had a better package, and it worked out better for me, and I won the championship, you know. But he didn't think like that. Jim was just out to help you. If you're a friend, good friend to have, bad enemy. I would say that would be a good way to sum it up.
You would agree on that as well?
Yeah. So, and as Stuart said, helped a lot of guys, you know. So And I mean, and to this day, still would, you know.
Yes.
So
I remember
he's just one of those kind of people.
in, I forget the years, maybe 08, 09 and 10, right up to I had the big injury really. He used to take me and Hutchie in, and we'd live there for 3 days of the week. And I mean, Miriam cooked for us, and Jim trained us, and like I say, we lived there.
In the torture chamber.
Tell me about the training side of it. We spoke about this before we came on, and that you explained that Jim, I mean, you see him now,
Jim's the only guy I know who stopped racing. He's the only one that can still get in his leathers.
Yeah, he's still keeping it in the original leathers without the use of Vaseline or talcum powder.
Yeah. So he's always been a very training and health orientated guy, even with what he eats and how he drank and stuff back then, and it's never really changed, and it helped a lot of people even when they stopped racing. You know, I mean, like even the Lowe's twins used to come up there and stuff. It's funny, I got a call for Jim one night, I think you were there. I come up one day and we were doing the quad and the bike and the cycle thing and all that. Me and Jim started, I think, years ago in the 90s, where we used to take a bicycle and either a quad or a motocross bike over to the track, and we would train, and you had the option you had to run a lap, you had to cycle a lap, and you had to ride the either motocross bike or quad a lap. And it was accumulative, and you could do it in what order you liked, and you could time yourself because it was only me and him. You know, whereas it kind of changed a bit when Stuart and that was doing it. So it got to the point it was so close you were even starting your own stopwatch because you were saying, you cheated, you never, you know. So I mean, it was crazy. You could stop and take your motocross boots off if you want. So then you're working out, you know, from a time point of view, what is going to be the quickest way to do all this. I mean, absolutely crazy, but it broke the monotony of doing the same thing all the time, you know. But so as Stuart was saying there, Jim called me one night, and I don't know if it was the time that I did it, you guys were there. He says, I've got such and such here, I can't remember the guy's name. He says, I've told him my fat bricky mate will come up and beat you. And I was like, oh, cheers, Jim. I said, I'm not even a bricky. He said, aye, but he doesn't know that. Because I've got a building company. So Jim says, come up, because I was still riding motocrossing and quadding and stuff. So maybe I wasn't so good in the pedal bike or that. So I had to come up and ended up beating this younger kid, man. And the guy's going mental. I can't even remember who it was, but that's just Jim winding him up. That was quite fun.
He changed your training regime, didn't he?
He did. I remember when we got in touch, and I can't remember if Hutchie was there before me or not, but I turned up and I thought I had been training, and I think I'd be like 25 by this time, and I mean, I used to get even when I trained with Jim for years, nobody used to think that I trained. I think I never used to talk about it or what tweeting and stuff, and
social media being in the gym.
Everybody takes a picture in the gym, blah blah blah, and I never did any of that, and I just pretty much did it the Scottish way, just under the radar, like you say, and I don't think a lot of people knew that I did train, but I definitely can say that I trained up at gyms for quite a few years, and when I first went, he did a bit of an assessment, and he said, "You've not been training." And I said, I have, I've been training. And he says, you've been attending the gym. You've been attending the gym was his words. You've been exercising.
That's kind of
and he said, I'm going to show you how to train. And then we started where we started. And I got, the biggest compliment I got off Jim was I was the most improved of anybody.
It depends where you started from.
That was his backhanded compliment. But no, it was good. It was good. It definitely helped. It just kind of gave me a bit of confidence on the grid. I've been trained by Jim, and we're ready to go.
I've seen the video that some of the antics that you and Hutchie would get up to. I've seen a certain video where you're having acupuncture.
Yeah, that was Jim took that video. It was in. That was another thing that Jim done. He got us. He had a guy, like a what do they call them? Bone specialist, like chiropractor. Me and Hutchie were often in there.
And was he flicking the needles?
I had acupuncture.
Was that Andy Binning?
Yes.
Yeah, I spent a day or two in Andy Binning's place.
Yeah. When you step up to the Superbike class, in 2000
Yeah.
to that amazing BSB season in 2000 with Hodgie and
Walker.
Stalker.
Yeah.
That was your natural progression at that point.
Yeah.
How did you adapt to the Superbike going forward?
Poorly, if I'm totally honest. I don't really. I just didn't seem to gel with it straight away. So I'm not quite sure why. But no. To be fair, I mean, we went and we done brands and that, and like I remember, I misquoting the Motorcycle News, which I was raging at, because they just made things up if they couldn't get a hold of you, didn't they? And made things up anyway. But regardless of that, I'd finished like out of all the guys that had moved from Supersport into Superbike, I'd finished the first out of us, but like in 10th place or something. But when you're used to being, literally, I'd got used to being on the rostrum every weekend, you know. Then all of a sudden you're nowhere. It's like, you know, it was a daunting task. And to be fair, the bike wasn't the most competitive. And I'm not just saying that. I'm saying that more as a compliment to Chris Walker. I mean, he did a phenomenal job on that bike. If you think the bike hadn't really changed from the bike that James Hayden and Terry Reimer had been riding, you know, and then all of a sudden Chris is winning on it. I mean, it's not like there was a big... We got some ex-factory parts from the stuff that the All-Star Corona team and stuff were having, but I mean, it wasn't like the bike was night and day better. I mean, at this point, it's a 4-year-old Superbike, and everybody's got the newer bikes, you know, so... For Chris to do what he done on that, I undoubtedly think that was Chris Walker's most competitive year on that bike. But he was zero help to me. So, yeah, the janitor at Brands Hatch helped me more than Chris did. And I don't even know if Brands Hatch has got a janitor. But yeah, I get zero information and zero help from that side of the garage.
Which at that time of 2000, against the Reve bikes, against the INS bikes.
Yeah.
There's
Honestly, I
multiple British champions in there.
Yeah.
It was a stacked field.
And even at World Superbike, you know, I mean, Chris did really well at World Superbike as well, you know.
So Podium that year.
Yeah.
Donington.
I mean, I scored points. I did that round as well, but I mean, nowhere near the guys. But I remember beating the number 2 Suzuki factory guy, the Japanese guy or whatever it was and stuff, you know, so scored points in the World Championship at least. But no, Chris did a phenomenal job on that bike, but Chris didn't help me at all.
And then the Scotsman for the following year, Neil Mackenzie alongside.
So Neil was a better help. And to be fair, that was another bizarre thing, and without talking too much out of school, Paul Denning had done a deal with the World Championship and Chris Walker to go to World Superbike in 2001. And then Chris done the dirty on them basically and done a deal with Honda and said nothing, you know, until the last minute. So Paul scrabbled to put a deal together, and we went to the championship and says, I'll field somebody in every class. Carol Harris in the 600, John Crawford in the Prodi class, and the young guy, James Cannyman, in the production 600 class. If we are allowed to use the old Superbike with the new bodywork, because we don't want to promote an old model.
Yeah.
We've got a full new model range, but we can't afford to buy new factory 750 Superbikes that are only going to be competitive for 1 year, because then we're going to the 1,000.
Yeah.
So then I was basically on a 5-year-old Superbike that looked like the latest all singing, all dancing thing, and you can say nothing. So at the start of the year, we were very competitive because I had the bike and it was set up, and I was in the rostrum for the first 3 rounds and stuff against like Stevie and all they boys, because my bike's fully sorted and it's going as fast as it can go. And at the end of that year, we went to Donington where the year started, and I'm going the speed we were going, because that's the speed the bike can go. But the problem is all the other guys' bikes were getting better as the season wore on. So that was a bit of a challenge. But it was Crescent was just a mega team. You just don't realise when you're in that environment that how good it is until you come out it. So,
yeah, when you go to a different team that maybe not have the same standards, you kind of look back and go, that was really good.
Yes.
And you say being in the moment at the time and understanding what you have.
That's it.
Stuart, when you the step up to Superbike for you, how did that come about?
Well, that was probably one of my regrets. One of the regrets, it doesn't really matter have a regret or not, it doesn't make any difference. But at the end of 2003, Paul Bird wanted to keep me on Supersport, and he said there's a new Ducati coming, a 749. It was new at that time, and he wanted to run me on that. And Michael Laverty ended up riding it. I was desperate to be on a Superbike. I was 21. In 21, I'd won Supersport. I'd finished second in Supersport, and I said, "What am I gonna? I've got nothing to gain, nothing to like what would I gain for staying in Supersport? So he thought I wasn't ready for Superbike, which in hindsight he was right. But being a young racer, desperate to be in Superbikes, I took the ETI Ducati contract, and it started off really good. I had qualified 5th at round 1, because when you put a qualifier in it, it just felt like a Supersport bike with loads of power. And I qualified 5th, and there was like John Reynolds, Michael Rutter, Sean Emmett, and I can't remember the names. There's Japanese guy,
Kageyama.
Yukio Kageyama, yeah.
Kageyama. There was a whole load of great riders, and I've qualified 5th, and I thought, this is going to be easy. I'm going to be like,
I'm the man.
I'll be winning in a couple of races. And then I came away for the first round 7th, got to the second round, put the qualifier in. I thought, I love these qualifiers. It makes my bike feel great. And went for a 0 to 100% throttle at bottom bend and high-sided, and got stuck under the bike and tore a load of skin off my arm. I had to get a skin graft. And that was the kind of introduction to Superbike. So that was my first injury, really. I'd never had an injury up to that point. So had a wee confidence knock and came back, struggled, felt a wee bit insecure. I'd been at Paul Bird's for quite a long time, for 3 full seasons, and felt like kind of homely and like a family. And so when you're riding for another team and you're not getting the results, and you're getting 15th, and I think I got a 12th here and there, and then that was it. The plug was pulled and sacked mid-season. So that was the first go at Superbikes.
You were on the ETI bike the year before that, weren't you?
Yeah, I finished with Crescent in 2001. So 2002, I'd done a deal with the ETI team, which was basically Ian Simpson.
Yeah.
So and Alistair Flanagan owned the team. Alistair had some sponsorship involvement with Crescent back in the day. Like in 2001, I had ETI in my crash helmet, but it was the team deal. It was nothing to do with me. So anyway, so I went to the guys. The thing is, I had been developing the 1000 for Crescent whilst we were racing the 750. So I had a bit of inside knowledge, if you like. So we started on that bike, testing through the season, went well. We went to Silverstone for the first round, qualified in the front row, but the clutches were horrendous in them at the start. So I got a really bad start in the first race, and a high-sided round the first left out the back at Silverstone. I don't even remember it. So I had actually concussion, so as I say, I don't remember it. I lined up for the second race and crashed in exactly the same place again. And I actually had ended up with bruising on my brain, which is something I didn't even think you had. I was attending the specialist hospital in Glasgow and stuff like that. So then that was the first I actually never had then missed a race. You know, I'd always managed, even with injuries, sellotape together, always managed to get to the next race. And then that was the first time I'd ever missed races. So I missed a few rounds. I think the DJ had been on the bike and some other people. And then I went back to try and ride that at Donington. And it felt surreal. I was riding around on the bike, but honestly, it felt as if I was riding pillion. I was going round, but just because it's like muscle memory, if you like.
Yeah.
To, 2 seconds off the pace, which, is like miles away. But I mean, I was doing it automatically. I come in and I went, I don't really feel as if I'm riding the bike. I'm safer not riding the bike. So then I missed another couple of races and then finished the season strong with ETI actually. So just when you're talking about Paul Bird, he actually came to me at the end of that race at Donington and said, GC, you can definitely ride a superbike. I wasn't sure, blah, blah, blah. I know what Bird can be like, I'm not sure what I'm doing and all that. So anyway, that never came to anything anyway. And then, so I lined up again with ETI on the Ducati the following year. Mm-hmm. So, and got to halfway through the season and had a falling out with them. And Stevie Hislop was meant to then go on the bike. And then I get killed in the helicopter accident. So then I ended up on a Supersport bike to finish that year off. This guy Easton that was at the front, I can't remember, this young fast guy.
Is that the only season you raced together in the same championship?
That would be the only couple of races towards the end of the year. But I was on not the fastest Ekerald Honda on Bridgestones. But it was bizarre, the first session on out and it was wet at Oulton Park and actually topped the session because it was like wet, and Bridgestone wets were good, but the dry tyres were shocking, and the bike wasn't the most powerful. So, and then I think with another one wet session at Cadwell, topped the session again. I thought, but honestly, see jumping back in a 600 after 4 years on a Superbike,
Yeah.
I felt as if I could pick it up and run round with it under my arm, you know, and that's no disrespect to Supersport, but I mean, Stuart will tell you this, you're riding around a Supersport bike and at some tracks you're looking and you're thinking, I'm only like a second and a half off this Superbike.
Yeah.
These guys have got like mega horsepower, they've got slicks, man. I could do that no problem, don't you? Until you get the horsepower and the slicks and you can't get the thing to work, you know, so that's, yeah, it's a different animal altogether.
It's when you came away from the Superbike, that was like your first experience of it, back into Supersport with JHP.
Yeah.
Again, another stacked Supersport crowd. I made a note: Cal Crutchlow, Jonesy, Leon Camier,
Tom Sykes.
Tom Sykes was in there as well, wasn't he? Jay Vincent, Perry Reba.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
It was a really, really strong time for Supersport. And that time again, Supersport seems to go kind of up. It goes through waves of being deep and not so deep. But that was a strong time. There's multiple world champions came from that
Yeah.
era. You know.
Without a doubt.
So I think when I went back, rebuilt and podiumed towards the end, and then stayed with that team for the following year.
For a seven, it is rebuilding that confidence, isn't it? Especially
Yeah,
when you have your first big injury.
It's a confidence game without a doubt.
It is.
I mean, some guys have got certain, maybe slightly more bike skills or whatever, but it's definitely a confidence game, 100%. You know, you'd rather be confident and not be quite as skilled as the guy who's got those skills, but has lost his confidence.
Mm-hmm.
You will beat him every day.
And that's the motorcycle race in a nutshell, isn't it?
Yeah.
We've said it on the podcast so many times. A confident rider is a fast rider.
Yeah.
And then you add the skill set to that.
Yeah.
That brings race wins and championships.
Without a doubt.
And that's how the game works. When the time came to hang up the leathers from the bike side of things, what prompted that?
It was like, obviously, ended 2003, the half season with Superbike with Flanagan, then finished with the Eckerd thing. I'd been speaking to a few people, I had some potential irons in the fire, but honestly, at Donington at the end of that year, I thought, you know what, I'm over this. But I never said anything to anybody, I just went through the motions. I thought, you can't say that and then in February decide, oh, I'm racing again and you've burnt all your bridges, you know. So I just kind of stayed away from the racing thing, tried to stay away from racing people, even like Jim. Jim would convince you that black was white when he puts his mind to it. So, you know, I thought I just needed some time to, and then I decided by the time February came, I thought, nah, I'm done. If you're not willing to give 110% and lay it on the line, there's no point being there. You're there to win. I was there to win. I wasn't there to run around. I wouldn't have done the deal to get really good wages and ride for another year. That was of no interest. Yeah.
I think I was the same. I knew when I wasn't prepared to be on it. Do you know what I mean? But I think there's a lot of, I'm not wouldn't say any names, but see when people get a wee bit older and they start chasing the setup and they blame the bike and they're not finding the setup and this, that and the other. But when you're 20, 22, 24, 26, whatever, you just you have to, you get what you can from it.
Every guy who wins every race could come in and he's got setup issues. Every race you've won, there was still an issue. There was still some could have
Never
been
a
better.
perfect bike.
But you just, no, there is not such a thing. But
I think you need to be honest with yourself and just be like, I maybe not what I used to be.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean?
We've said it again on the regular viewers and listeners to the podcast, that they know my feelings on this. There comes a certain point with every rider.
There's a peak in there.
There's a peak, but there's also the last excuse in the book is that mirror. This is where's the problem? Is the problem me? And it's the hardest thing for a racer to do. Go, is the problem? Do I want this anymore? Can I do? Is this my future? And if you have the presence and the wherewithal, and you've both been there and you've both done it, to go, do you know what? I'm done. I'll stop on my terms and not fade out. This is me done. I'll make this decision. What comes next is entirely up to me.
Yeah, 100% for me. That's how it was. It was just like, I'm just over it. And once I'm over it, then that was it. And to be honest, when I was done, I was done. And it's bizarre that year. Then Jim finished as well. Brian Morrison finished. You know, it was like there was quite a clump of Scottish guys that had finished. But I mean, I was totally content with it. You know, there was only one time since I went to MotoGP with Paul Denning when he was running the thing. I went over to Brno to spectate, and that was the only time I went into Brno, and I'd never ridden there or raced there, and thought, wow, it was the only time I wished I was still a racer. I thought I'm not interested in doing a track day there. I would have loved to have raced at that track.
Some circuit.
Yeah.
I've got zero notion to race a bike now. I don't miss it one bit.
You couldn't pay me to ride a motorbike.
But what I will say, I've had this wee chat with my dad the other week, and bike racing kind of wrecks you for the rest of your life though, because see if you've done what you've done in racing and just maybe a qualifying lap or a race or whatever, a championship, and when you're away shopping with a missus or something, and you're in and it just people watch and think nothing's ever enough.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? Because you've had such a
The adrenaline and the joys and the highs and lows of racing are so difficult to replace. You went on to replace that with the rally, and we'll come to that
I mean,
shortly.
I'm still doing that. Yeah, that's a mega buzz, but yeah.
But from the racing point of view, you'd both achieved by your early 30s, you'd both achieved so much in racing in a short space of time that other riders who had 25-year careers never reached.
Yeah.
So you brought so much to the sport and the championships and the race wins, and you get to that point and you go, no, I'm done. I'm here. I'm there, but for the grace of God, here I am. Especially in your case.
Yeah, definitely.
We're ready to do this. So if I come to you, Stuart, we'll talk about the switch to MSS, but then the step into road racing, to the Northwest 200, and having Bilby as your teammate, Billy McConnell at one point, which is never a dull moment when Bilby's around. But going into the road racing side of things in Macau, why?
Macau, I've said this before, Macau was just a total accident. It was pre YouTube, pre internet. I think it was there would have been internet, but
You're not that old.
I just had a mobile phone that you
not like me and John.
sent texts on, and that was it.
Mobile phone, you couldn't text on.
Playing Snake on the back.
Exactly, and it was that era, and somebody like McGuinness was a regular there. Steve Hislop had been there multiple times and won it 3 times, and this race in Macau was getting mentioned in the mid-season, and I was like, so you get to race your motorbike in the winter, and you get a holiday, and I thought,
What's not to like?
Put my name in for that, and I must have been naive or just wasn't listening or whatever it was, but I genuinely never knew it was a street race.
Okay.
And I turned up at the island, Macau Island, at the docks, and we had our kit bags and waiting to get the bus to the hotel. And I said to John McGuinness, "Where's the circuit?" And he said, "There, that's it." And I was looking at the Armco barriers, and I was like, "Where's the racetrack though?" And he said, "That's it." And I was like, "What the hell have I done here?" But then did some laps and quite enjoyed it, and then I was like, thought it was quite cool because I was then a road racer by accident.
But
and
Stuart Easton, the accidental road racer.
And that's how it kind of started. It was, I think, I probably was not listening. I think when and that was that.
God.
You never fancied the road. I know you had a little dabble at the
No,
Northwest
I was never
as a guest.
Never as a roads guy. I went twice, believe it or not. I went in '94 to generate some income because Jim, usual, says, go, same thing, no internet, no way checking up. He says, just tell them you've done all these
In
road
'94,
circuits.
there was definitely no internet.
Yeah. He says, tell them you've raced here, the Hengelo, this one, that one, and you've done this and that, and you'll get a bit of money for going, and then you'll win a bit of money anyway. So I thought, right, okay. So I went on the phone and gave it all my patter, and they paid for the boat, bit of start money and stuff. So I'd made money before I even went, and that would go into the pot to help to race. So I went there with no intention of trying hard. So it was
And
my
you
first
get
year
sucked
back.
into a
No, here's my level of stupidity. I went there. It rained for the first practice, and I had a bike to run in because I had an old engine in it. I didn't want to use my Supersport engine, so I'm thinking I'm tootling around here in the rain, not really going that fast, and that was fine. They cancelled the session and the rest of the night because it was too wet, too dangerous. And I come in, and you get sheets, don't you? So I started genuinely at the bottom. And I got to the point I thought they've missed me. And then I looked and I was in 7th place. And I thought, oh my God. I thought I was going so slow. That's how stupid I am. That's how little I know about riding in the roads. I thought I'd be like 15, 20 seconds off
You go
the
from
pace.
the bottom of the timesheet trying to find your way up.
To the point I thought I wasn't on it. And then I thought, that just proves you're a clown. You've got no idea what you're doing because you thought you were going about here, you know, and you should.
It's up
So I thought. So I just toodled round and what do you call it? Pete Jennings, who ended up with crew chief, was a competitor back then, and what do you call it? I remember talking to him in the morning. I said, "What's the plan today then?" And he's like, "Oh, I'm going for it." He says, "What about you?" I said, "Hi, I'm going for the wages." And then the boat. And then he actually crashed in that meeting, hit a pole or something, and broke his legs. And he came back to racing, but he was never the same again. So, but yeah, so that was my first foray into the Northwest, and thought I would never go back until '97. Suzuki had done a deal to field 2 riders, Jim Moody and I think it was maybe Matt Llewellyn. I'm not 100% sure about that. But anyway, whoever the second rider was, they couldn't go. So they asked me to fill in. I said, right, I'll go and I'll toodle round. I said, but I'm not going to go and try and win. So I went and I done that. And to be fair, I was in the top 10, but the difference has been in the top 10 than being in the rostrum. And it's bizarre, like guys that I was racing against at the British Championships are coming flying by me and I'm going, no, I'm not a roads guy. You know, so I was relatively disciplined and survived. So.
You told me a great story when we met in reception earlier about yourself and Jim on the set. Explain that, because I can imagine their faces now.
I'm sure there's plenty of people watching this can't understand it anyway, but yeah. So I was out in the Supersport bike and Jim was out in the Superbike because we're both in the same Suzuki team. So when I come in the Supersport bike, Jim came over and was wanting to see how the gearing was in the bike, how the setup felt, blah, 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 any changes that I thought we needed to make, because we had rode a very similar setup. So me and Jim are having a 300 mile an hour conversation full of adrenaline about what we should change in the 600 before Jim jumps on. And so Paul Denning's standing with the rest of the crew to make all these changes. And so me and Jim are like, the way I'm facing you now, and we turned round to Paul and went, right, and he just went, what the fuck was that? Yeah, so yeah, that was quite funny. It was like the blank expression of every mechanic in the team. So, yeah.
That's the beauty. There's such a great story. I enjoyed that one when you told. I've enjoyed it again now. It's just absolute class. Stuart, when we talk about the Northwest 200, you built into the Northwest so well, from the Kawasaki to the Honda to the podiums in the Superbike class. What did you enjoy about the triangle?
Prize money, like John says. It was as a British Superbike front runner, you could get a bit of start money and then the prize money, but it wasn't just the money. I mean, it was that was a bonus, but it was coming off Macau. That was the next kind of step, really. It was a race that a British Championship team could take you to quite easily, and I just enjoyed it, really. It was just a good racing, and I never really had much of a plan. You know what I mean? I just did what came up, and it was possible to race there, so I just went and raced, and that was it, really. But
going through life without a plan, especially in motorcycle racing,
to be honest,
that's difficult.
That'd be one of the very few races I ever did for money. It was always great to win money and bonus and stuff, but the only time I ever went to do somewhere to just try and earn money was when I went in '94 to do the Northwest 200, knowing that I would get a chunk and that would help pay for a few races. But back then you could do that, you know, you could pick the newspaper up, no internet again, look and say, right, I'm going to race there at the weekend, and that could be World Superbike. You could decide I'm going to go to Aston and do World Superbike, you know, like Ian, Jim, Brian Morris and all the guys, you know, and you just rock up and you know, pay your entry and away you went, you know, whereas now you've got to be registered for the championship, you've got to use their control tyre, you know, like I would go to the British Championship, do a race, keep those tyres, go to Knockhill, do the Regal, race with those tyres. You could win 500 quid or 550 quid at Knockhill. You could do the Regal on a Saturday in Ireland. They would pay your boat, free entry. You could win the same, maybe £1,000. If you had a good weekend, you could win 1,500 quid on old tyres to then use to pay for your next British Championship. There is nothing, you can't do that like that now. So that's impossible. But back then you could race to make money to do the next level of racing. And the Ian and Jim and all they boys, and they even done that with World Superbike. They would just go, right, we're going to go and do this one and do that one. And so definitely far easier then.
It was a lesson though, the prize money thing, where I remember going back after 2010 into 2011, and I was thinking, right, I've got this much start money, and I'm gonna, even if it rains for the whole week, I'll get that, and if it's good. And last year I got this, and I had the money in the bank in my mind before I'd even, and then I had that huge accident on the Thursday night, and then that was a big lesson. Never count your money before it's earned.
It's not there until it's in.
And there was a bizarre thing when I went to Superbike in 2000. Then they decided that Superbike riders didn't need prize money in the British Championship. Back then I think it was like 1,500 quid for a win. And then if you were in the rostrum, you a couple of times in a day, and a bit of bonus and that, you could come away with a few grand in your tail. But then they decided, no, you just don't need prize money. Do that deal with your team. But that deal with your team is always the team deal. You were never getting prize money on top of that, So just another way the British Championship screwing the boys, which they successfully have done for years.
That's how I was better off in 2013 in Supersport. Yeah, I did better in that championship than I would have done in Superbike.
Because there is that point of the British Superbike riders don't get prize money.
Yeah.
It's well known out
That's
there.
laughable. Here's another thing. Marty Craggle was a teammate in Superbike when I was in Supersport in '99, when him and James Hayden were on the Suzuki Superbikes. And then Marty went back to Australia to race. And he was big pals with Matt Mladen, the Australian. So he'd obviously been talking to Matt about the Superbikes and stuff and the money he'd made and all that. And Matt thought the money that Marty had got for a full season in BSB was for one round. Marty's like to him, no, that's for the year. He went, I thought that was for one round. That's the difference in the money they were making then in AMA in America.
Matt Mladen, 6 times champion, never went to GPs because he was making too much money. Why would I need to go somewhere else and struggle when I can make a fortune here?
Yeah, definitely.
When we look back from your point, 2010, if I know I can feel that time is pushing on and we need to be upstairs shortly. Riding for Sean Muir in 2010 was an incredible season for you, with the results on the roads and in BSB as well. James Ellison is your teammate at that point.
That's right.
The trajectory was starting to get steeper.
The year before was actually the 2009 year on the Hydrex Honda was the better year. First year with Sean, I got third in the Superbike Championship, and we won a couple of races. So that was the kind of better year. The following year on the Swan bike, there was a few changes to the bike, and it was better sometimes, but then it was a wee bit more inconsistent track to track, I felt.
Okay.
From an electronics point of view.
Yeah.
But the 2009 bike was great every time I rode it. So I think I was third in 2009, but then I had an inconsistent year in 10, and I dropped to 8th, I think. So yeah, we did win races, but we were way inconsistent.
But more machinery than...
I think so.
Than you.
I think so. Yeah. Like every racer, blame the bike.
I'll line them up for you. I don't mind. I'll line them up. Before we come to 2011.
I could have won everything in Superbike if you put all those other guys on 125s.
Yeah.
I think it's rubbish.
If I could ride a bike, I'd be in a contender.
Yeah.
I can ride a bike.
If I could have rode a bike, I could have been a contender as well.
I can ride a bike, but I've never raced one, and that's why I do this, because I can't do that. And I've never had the opportunity, and I don't have them. I don't have the cojones for it. That it's the privilege is listening to your stories and to your careers and what you've done for the sport. But post racing for you, JC, going into rallying and
oh God,
the McRae family and the connections there,
I mean,
and
obviously
the times you had with them.
Even like when Colin, he came to a few Suzuki things and stuff, and like had some involvement with the team when I was still with Crescent and whatnot, and done a few days with. In fact, it's bizarre when you talk about like heroes and all that. Kevin Schwantz is a guy I always watched. 19, like it'd be 86, 87 Transatlantic Challenge and stuff.
Yeah.
And thinking, wow. And then there I was at Brands Hatch doing a Suzuki day with Kevin Schwantz, you know what I mean? And ended up, when I say pally with him, pally enough that if he was walking down the pitch, he would stop and talk to me.
Yeah.
You know, he came to Knockhill up into our garage and stuff like that because he was over at Senior Mackenzie, stuff like that. You think, you know, this is the guy that I thought, wow. By the same token, like with Ian Simpson and all they boys who I first seen at Knockhill, and you think they're the men, and then all of a sudden they're your pals and they're just normal, you know. But it's, yeah, it's just strange how the whole job goes, to be fair. So.
I remember seeing that Colin was he loved his bikes as well.
Yeah,
didn't
yeah.
he?
As I say, so he used to do a lot of that. It's a big crossover. A lot of rally guys are into bikes and vice versa. So when I had been dabbling in rallying, and by the way, a lot I knew the McRae's and I knew a lot of my other friends who rallied. It was through Ian Simpson I got into rallying, believe it or not. Yeah, I was stuck in the van with his brother-in-law all day because Ian had rolled twice in the one stage in the one rally. We had to sit all day waiting to go and rescue him. And by the end of the day, I had bought his brother-in-law's rally car off him. So, yeah.
It beats coming out the Jensen buying it.
Yeah. So that was how I became a rally driver. So, yeah, did that for probably 4 years or something like that. And, yeah, in fact, 2009, I rolled out the McRae rally, bizarrely enough. And I thought, oh, I'm done with that. So, packed that in and decided to go and race quad motocross. So I'd done that for 3 or 4 years. And then I thought, I'm going to take up motocross. So I've kind of done that ever since, and now I've been back at rallying the last 4 years. So, yeah.
Keeping active away from the racing.
Yeah. So, yeah, the rally thing's good. So it's I've got a proper like 4-wheel drive car now. I started back, I had a Mark II Escort in the kind of open 2-wheel drive class. So, yeah, that went well, and I thought, right, time for a wee change. So bought a proper thing. So
when we get a chance to have a look around the foundation later on, the Metro 6R4 at the back.
I bought Colin's 6R4 off.
Oh, did you?
Yeah, I rallied that for a few years. And bizarrely, there's famous clips on YouTube of him spinning it in the Donegal rally. It was my car then, it wasn't Colin's, but everybody knew it had been and assumed it was. So another story, so that broken wrist. The week before that Donegal rally, me and Colin were out motocrossing. Quad motocrossing, and I landed off a jump and broke my wrist. I never even come off, and I rolled to a halt. It was in his track, so I stopped. They went, "What have you done?" I said, "I broke my wrist." "You sure?" "Aye." And they went, "So you'll be knackered for the rally then, eh? I'll just use your car," because he had broke the diff in his car. And I was like, "No, I don't need to run to the hospital or anything." He's like, no. That was easy. I can use your car. So, yeah, just a segue there. But, yeah, so I had a Metro. Yeah, phenomenal thing.
I remember those from being at school at Tony Pond and the computer vision
and all
that.
Noise, wasn't it? I mean, you had to have one.
Incredible.
It was an uncompetitive car to buy when I bought it. You know, you should have had like an Evo 10 or something like that, or Evo 9, sorry. But I decided I wanted a Metro. Yeah, they're just horrible, aren't they? So, no, Metro every day. So.
What about you from the car side of things? And
No.
I know obviously the family business is motor cars, but actual...
Just MOT in them is the...
That's it now. This is as close as you want to get to it.
No, I've never really... My dad was into rallying. He used to rally a Mini in the 70s. And then when I came along as a youngster, it was the first thing you could do was schoolboy motocross as a little boy. So that's what kind of... He was into petrol rallying. He used to go enduro riding and whatnot. So that's how it sort of happened for me.
When we go now into 2011, the story of 2011 has been told enough times from the injury point of view. We're not going to dwell on that. It's been on other podcasts. People want to look it up on YouTube. Stuart goes into immense detail about that time. But if you would do us the honour of retelling the story of Special K, that's the only thing that we will go to on the 2011 crash.
Special K, you see that on the news now. It's a pandemic.
It's more now than it ever was back then.
Ketamine's a pandemic, and it was actually Ian Hutchinson when he had his huge injury with his leg, and when he was recovering for that, he's recovered for that multiple times. But when he was recovering, I went to visit him, and he said, I was lying on the road and I was screaming for morphine. He was shouting for morphine. His leg was like all but off, hanging by the skin, and the medic guy must have said something like, "I'll give you something better than that. I'll give you Special K." So he says, if you're ever smashed to bits, he says, don't ask for morphine, ask for Special K. That's what the medics call it. So it must have went into my brain and into my subconscious. So when I was lying in the road, smashed to bits, I was shouting for Special K, screaming and shouting Special K. And I was kind of in and out of consciousness. I can half remember, but it was Norman Burgess that came along, who was a big friend of Paul Bird's, and he was actually marshalling like really close to where I crashed. And he came hobbling along, as Norman does hobble a bit, and he lifted my visor up, and he says, like, it's you, he said. And I looked at him and I was like, it's you? Like, I must have been a bit like away with half in and out of consciousness. And I says, Norman, I need Special K. And I was screaming for this Special K. And he said, when the medic did arrive, he had been trying to keep me calm and try and stop us screaming and bawling for the Special K. And he says, look, I'm going to go across to that house and I'm going to get you some cereal and you'll be fine. And it's just him trying to keep me calm. And I was like, it's not cereal that I want, it's a Special K. And the medic guy came and he says, I think he's lost the plot, he's asking for cereal. And I said to the medic guy, I says, Special K. And he says, I know exactly what you want. And he cut my leathers open and give us a big injection. And then the next thing I was like in a little white room on the ketamine. So
he's loved it ever since.
Still enjoying the benefits of it now. No, we're not. Absolutely not. But to be that lucid in such a traumatic time is incredible.
Terrible. Like, just, I don't know how I ever raced again, to be honest. It just shows you how much of an obsession bikes become, and
Madness.
It does. It is.
That's the drug. The bike racing is the drug. That's what it's all about, and it's why you do what you do and do what you did.
I had a big crash at Mallory Park and I smashed my lower leg, tib and fib, and my foot had been in the back wheel and it chewed the sole right off my foot. Degloved being the technical term.
Degloved is a technical term.
And I remember lying at Mallory Park, last lap it was at the S's, and my leg was round the opposite way than what it should have been. And I could see all the inside of it, and it was like something off the Terminator. You know, when he does that, and you can see all the wee rods and all that, so it's like screaming. You know you've hurt yourself when you're in the air and you're screaming. You know, that's, yeah.
One thing I hear on a regular basis is when you high side a motorcycle, you've got so much time to think on the way back down. I've only crashed once at the Coppice at Donington Park, and it was a low side, massive lack of experience, lack of everything.
Oh, you don't need that to crash at Coppice.
Oh my, honestly,
you've done that with all the experience in the world.
Well, it's true. I was following Levi Day and Brad Howell on a Ron Haslam track day, and Levi went in a little bit deep. We were on the 600s, and Levi went in deep, and I was like, closed the throttle, loaded the front. But it's amazing of what you can think of as you head into the ground. Like, that's my session. I'm going to look all right, dick, walking down pit lane. I hadn't even stopped rolling by that point.
Normally for me, it was here we go again. Here we go again. As your
that's many kind of thought.
Here we go again.
The slow high sides are the worst though. The straight up and straight down ones.
Yeah, the ping forwards.
I had never crashed at Craner and were there to do the World Supersport. And I just quickly tell this. So I went out in the first session. They put this brand new Inconol system on this bike. Yoshimura, only one in the world. Try that. Crashed there, wrecked it. Second in the afternoon, I went out qualifying, high-sided through the left at Craner, thinking, that's good. I've never crashed here before. That was twice in one weekend.
Did you ever crash at Craner?
I've done Craner. I've joined the club there, 02 on the 748. Yeah. Paul Bird was not happy with that. I think the crank was the only thing that was left for the whole bike. It was mangled.
I think you had the big Brands crash as well, didn't you? Same one I had, 2001, when I went hurtling straight into the barriers at the end of, what do you call that big strip? 4 Hawthorn.
Oh, Hawthorn, yeah.
I totally
Pilgrim's Drop.
destroyed a factory bike.
You shoulder charged somebody as you went
Steve
off it.
Player. What happened is,
That man again.
yeah, right, quickly. Last lap starts, I'm in third place. Stevie and John Reynolds are gone. So it's me, Rutter, Plater, Rutter, Dyson for the rostrum. So covers into Druids, that's fine. Good exit, down the hill. Nobody's outbreaking me here until Steve, thank you, does a do or die move and runs it 2s wide and Rutter passes us. I thought, great. So now you're trying to make a plan to get 2 people back in like 6 corners. So out onto the back straight, and Steve had got a decent run, and I thought, he's lining up Rutter to go under him at Hawthorns. I thought, if he goes under him at Hawthorns, I'm going to stay out wide, get the exit, and I'll get one of them into there, and I'll get one of them after Dingle This is my master plan. Right, you need a plan, whether it works or not. So as I moves out to the outside, Steve's going to the inside to pass Rutter, but at the last minute decides I'm not going to get by him, so sweeps back to the outside to obviously get the line to go around the corner. And now I've got nowhere to go. So I leaned in like that as he's coming across so that he hit me and knocked my bike. Yeah. And then by that time it's too late and I just had to pull the front brake and lay it down. Got 100 and whatever mile an hour. I think it's 160 down there it was.
That's fast into Hawthorns.
Destroyed the bike. Scrap.
Picking it out of the trees.
Sorry, Paul. Yeah. So yeah, I didn't have much time to think. That's probably the one crash I had that was so fast and such a short run off where it was just like, oh my God. And
Mine was the same. Mine was like, I had brake failure, but I think it was a master cylinder fault in hindsight, because the brake kind of went spongy, really baggy, and I was toying with the fact that, like, do I pull in, or I was in 4th behind Hopkins, I think, or maybe Michael Laverty.
Yeah.
And anyway, I was like, do I come in? Do I not come in? I was like, it's always kind of bred into you to keep going until your wheels stop turning, and I had half a brake, so I thought, yeah. So on that back straight, and I was started deciding as I went, still probably doing 180 or whatever it is, 170, and then there was the half brake went to no brake, and that was another regret. I should have pulled in.
yeah, but we've all been there.
It's races are races.
So the bike was in half it was stuck up a tree. And they never got the half up a tree
over the bar
until the Tuesday. They never got the bike till the Tuesday. Had to get a.
You're in illustrious company, and the bikes that have gone into the trees at the bottom of Hawthorns. That's for sure. I can see out the corner of my eye. We're getting the wind up. We're getting the wind up sign. What I want to just talk to you, Stuart, just to finish off. We can't finish off without that second Supersport Championship. Tim Martin and Sonia finished in BSB at the end of this last season. Closing the door on this latest chapter, but 2013 Supersport champion, after everything you'd been through the previous 2 seasons, how much did that mean to you?
It did mean a lot, and like I said, the 02 championship was a tiny bit weaker, and to get that one, it was a hard fought one, and it went to the wire, and it was just a really good year I fitted in with the team really well. I had a great crew chief, great mechanics, Tim and Sonia, the whole family, and it just suited me to a T, because it was really, at that time for them, it was they had their kind of motorhome truck, and it was at the time sort of it was just what you needed for the job, and I liked that. It just turn up and get on with the racing. None of the chat things and the hospitalities and
podcasts and all that rubbish.
All the stuff that you do.
all the other stuff that you got to do, yeah.
But speak to that guy, Dave.
But it just, I always on a Sunday morning, I wanted to get on with the job, and that was it really. That was the way we done it. But I remember Ian Simpson, a quick wee story, when I was on the grid with Ian in 04, and it was starting to get like that. You were 15 minutes on the grid, and it was compulsory to have your helmet off, and it was all coming in that way. And Ian says, he says the racing's getting in the way of all this.
The racing's getting in the way.
Racing's getting in the way of all the media commitments and everything that you do. Speaking of media commitments, we've got to have some lunch and go upstairs. Boys, this has been an absolute joy. Thank you so much to both of you. Ladies and gentlemen, please. Stuart Easton, John Crawford. Thanks, boys. Absolute pleasure.
Cheers, mate.
A big thanks to JC and to Stuart. I hope you enjoyed that just as much as we did. It was a brilliant day up at the Moulsdale Foundation. And if you are up in Glasgow, when their open days are on, I can't recommend it enough. It's an incredible place with so many amazing cars and bikes. It really is worth a day out. A big thanks to the team up there at Bishop Briggs as well, to David, to Jez, to Heather, to the videography team as well. Everyone that makes this episode happen when we're up there. So thank you so much to everyone for all your help. And to you watching this, from Jennifer and I, a very Merry Christmas to you and a Happy New Year. We wish you every success for 2026 and hope you get a chance to have a peaceful and happy Christmas with the ones that mean the most to you. Thank you so much for all your support in 2025, to the amazing guests that we've had, and to each and every one of you that's interacted with the show, whether it's been in person or it's been on through the internet. It really does mean the world to us both. So that's it for 2025. We'll see you in 2026. Have a great Christmas and a Happy New Year. Bye-bye.